Hello everyone, welcome to ETM 521, Culturally Reflective Instruction. I'm Tom Riddle, and I'll be working with you for the next 8 weeks as we learn about this course and how we can make our instruction more culturally reflective and responsive to our students, our parents, our communities, and our colleagues. This McDaniel course follows the other ones in the ETM 521 ETM program in that it has 4 modules. Each module and what's assigned in it are pretty well described in the course guide and the 4 module pages. We'll look at that in a second on the Blackboard page. Within each module, there's also 2 to 3 discussion boards. Remember that your guidance is to respond to each one initially early in the module, and then try to respond to each thread 2 or 3 more times. So you should be responding to each thread 3 times for a total of 6 to 9 posts in each of the discussion boards. There are 3 deliverables or assignments for this course. A small one in this first module, a little bit bigger one in the second module, and then in the third and fourth module we'll work on a instructional assignment as well. There's 2 texts for this course, Culturally and Linguistically Responsive Teaching and Learning by Holly, and the Listening Leader. The Listening Leader you'll use again in ETM 525. If you haven't gotten those 2 texts, make sure that you do. They're available from the McDaniel bookstore. So let's take a quick look at the way the course is set up before we talk about Module 1. Again, make sure that you take some time to check out the syllabus that talks about the course outcomes, the required texts, and then the grading. The course guide is also a pretty handy part. The course guide is broken down by the modules and tells you what the reading is and what the assignments are. The rubrics are here for each of the assignments, including the discussion board, reflecting on your in-practice rubric, which you'll be doing in this module, the observation rubric, which you'll be doing in Module 2, and then the final project, which you'll be doing in Module 3 and Module 4. Each module also has its own page. So in Module 1, again, we get the objectives for the module, what you need to read or watch, a description of the module and how to best move through it, a link to the module forum, and then the assignment. Remember, turn in the assignment, just click the link and it'll allow you to turn in the assignment that way. The assignments are due on the second Sunday of the module before midnight. To get to the discussion board, you can also click here and then click into the Module 1 forum. Again, there's 3 threads for this first module, so in each of the threads you should reply initially and then try to reply at least 1 time in the middle and then 1 time towards the end of the module to your peers. So let's take a look at what Holly and Sophia tell us in this first module and the readings that you're going to be completing. Holly talks to us about what he refers to as vapping, and that's basically one of the ways that we can make sure that we are providing culturally and linguistically responsive instruction. And he's going to spend some time just defining what culturally and linguistically responsive instruction and why both cultural and linguistic are part of his definition or are part of his major objective for the book. But an element of culturally and linguistically responsive instruction for him is what he refers to as vapping. So vapping is validation. How do we validate or legitimize the home culture and language of our students? The A, affirmation. How do we affirm? How do we reverse the stereotypes that pop culture, the media, that some of our commonly held beliefs about different groups? How do we reverse those stereotypes so instead we can build up our students and provide alternative perspectives for our students to look at and examine? First B is for building. How do we invest in our students? How do we invest in our students by understanding their culture and understanding their linguistic behaviors? And then finally, how are we bridging our students? How are we helping them to develop the skills that they will need beyond the classroom? Think about how you do this each day in your classroom. How do you validate your students and their culture? How do you affirm why their culture is important and reverse those harmful stereotypes that they sometimes see? How do we build up our students, and then how do we bridge them to the next step? Holly also tells us to think about where our teaching is on the methodology curriculum. Is our instruction traditional, more direct instruction? Is it responsive? Is it allowing kids to interact with us? And is it culturally responsive? Is it allowing kids to interact with us, kids to interact with their peers, and kids also to demonstrate their own culture? Holly tells us that in any lesson, there's a place for all three of these elements of instruction. There should be elements of traditional instruction, there should be elements of responsive instruction, and then we should also be moving towards culturally responsive instruction. There should be a mix of the three. There's nothing wrong with traditional instruction, just as long as that's not the whole basis of our lesson. But all three of these have a place in our classroom. One of the key things that Saphir is going to tell you to look at is looking at how we look at data. And he describes three levels of data: the satellite data, the map, and the street level data. The satellite data is the big pieces of data that we can look at. Maybe that's our PSAT scores or our state assessment scores. The map level data will be again, larger chunks of data or larger sources of data. This could be your unit assessment. It could be an end of course assessment. These two help us identify the issues and identify where we have concerns. But then there's also the street level data. The street level data could be things like, what behaviors are our kids showing? How are they performing on their daily work? Or if we were observing teachers, what are our teachers saying in meetings? Or what are our teachers saying, or what behaviors are our teachers showing when we're doing an observation of them? Think about what data you're looking at, and what data are you using to drive your instruction, and what data are you using to respond to the needs of your learners. One of the other arguments that Saphir makes in the first chapter is that the power of the community and the parents and the teachers and the students to make change. That our test-heavy culture, school culture of the past, has kind of pushed the community out and led us into a top-down method. But we need to look more and appreciate more about how is the community driving things, and how can the community be used to solve the problems that our schools are facing. So think about that, and think about what type of data would we be using if we're going to give our communities some more power and some more influence in driving our instruction. Maybe some of that street level data is going to be a little bit more important. Just some things to think about as you get started in this module. Again, there's 3 discussion boards in this module in the deliverable. First discussion board asks you to think about where your school is and as far as culturally responsiveness. You don't need to have all of your sources read or completed to start that module or start that discussion thread. It's okay. The second module asks you to think about more, where are you? And again, you don't have to have all the readings and things completed. And then the third one asks you to think about your leadership. You might want to have most of the readings completed before you start to tackle that one. Let's also look at the deliverable or the assignment for this module real quick. So this assignment asks you to, number 1, think about culturally and linguistically responsive teachings and that methodology curriculum. Also think about the VABBing, VABB, that Holly describes in Chapter 1. And choose a 20 to 30 minute block of instruction or any manageable time frame. And think about all the things that you did. Not just what the lesson plan said, but what did you do in your classroom? And think about where those things would fall, both on your methodology continuum, and then also where would they fall as far as VABBing. Are you validating and affirming behavior? Are you building bridges? Plot those things on the continuum and then label them based on whether they are validated or affirmed, whether they built bridges. Some things might not be doing either of those two things, and that's okay. After you've done that, after you've plotted those, write a 1 to 2 page reflective. Think about, are you meeting your students' needs based on this? What data are you looking at? What is the data telling you? What changes should you make? And if you already believe you're already meeting your needs for your students, then what do you think, what strategies are helping you to stay inspired and helping to keep you fresh? Again, 2 major steps: looking at your behaviors, plotting them and labeling them, and then writing a 1 to 2 page reflection. Doesn't have to be long. Just start to get you thinking. When you're ready to turn that in, which is due by the last day of the module, which would be not next Sunday, but the Sunday following, just turn it in by clicking this link. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'd be more than happy to help you out with anything. Look forward to working with you and look forward to seeing you and your thoughts on the discussion boards.